Hi folks, in this video I'm going to demonstrate how we can leverage test and monitor to test API endpoints that are secured using OAuth. So the first thing we need to do is to get that access token, right? For that, we're going to set up a post request to the authentication server by sending all the parameters with our user credentials. So let's click on Add Component, choose Post, and add the authentication server's URL here. Followed by adding a variable. I'm going to call it authentication payload. Let's keep JSON as the format because that's what the server's response is going to be in. And then let's add authentication. Choose basic auth, and then we're going to add username and password here. Make sure you enter your username and password correctly. So as you can see here, my username and password is way longer than what I entered. So as you can see, I have the word basic appended before the base 64 encoded string, which is nothing but the ASCII representation of my username and password. Now, when we talk about OAuth, I'm sure all of you know about grant types. So grant type is a way an application gets its access token based on the different use cases or scenarios. In this example, I'm using client credentials. So that needs to be passed as a parameter to the authentication server. And how do we do that is we click on add parameter. I'm going to provide my grant type detail here. Now, before we proceed further, let's quickly run this test to see if we are getting the access token or not. My test is running and yes, I get a status 200. Now let's take a deeper dive into what happened. So click on see request. I see that my access token has been generated here. So if you click on load source, you can see that my access token has been generated. Now let's go back to our test and monitor screen here and continue with this. So the next thing is to parameterize the token, which is nothing but adding or assigning a variable which can be reused or which can be used to access the token directly. Now click on add component and choose set variable. I am going to call this variable uh, user token. Payload dot, so I'm assigning the value of access token to this variable. So the next thing is to comment out this variable. Now let's run this and see what happens. So as you can see, my token has been generated and we got the token back. Now using this, let's see if we are able to call the actual API endpoint. Let's see how we can use this access token to make a successful call to the actual endpoint. Let's go ahead and add the GET request. Here's the URL. I'm going to assign a variable for this, which is going to be cust payload. The response is going to be in JSON. And let's go ahead and add authentication, which is going to be a header here. So I'm going to call this authorization. The actual value comes from the user variable, which we just defined in our previous step. So let's run this and see if we are able to get the payload response. Taking a deeper look, you can see that I've got my response code as 200, and here's my customer data. You can continue to add more test assertions here, then proceed to publish and schedule the test. Thank you.